Hey, how you guys doing out there? Let's start over. Hey, how you guys doing out there? What is going on? How you guys doing? I am Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and I am coming to you from, of course, my fantastic place known as Tower. So, how you guys doing out there? Oh my god, it's so dark. It's so dark. And that's fine, because I am bringing up the new thing. There we go. Of course, there's always a little bit of difficulty there. How you guys doing out there? I am Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and welcome to the Darkcide of the Moon. This is the show where we talk about my experience as a gamer, and of course, a few things that a lot of people never really had the chance to consider. We go pretty deep, yeah. We do. We go pretty deep with our subject matter, and it gets, how can I put it? I don't want to be the John Oliver of YouTube gaming, but I'm willing to be the John Oliver of YouTube gaming, so that's a thing. Yeah, I'm not really liking my video quality right now. I don't know what's going on, but that's okay. We're all here, we're all doing it, and happy Tuesday. Sorry I'm late. As you guys can see, I have so many technical problems day in, day out, but that's okay. That's not your fault. Let me see what I can do on fixing something real quick. But in the meantime, I'm gonna pull up a thing for you guys to, of course, check out our information, and I'll be right back. I feel so much better. That is so much. Anyway, what did I put up there for all you new guys that are in the audience? That, again, like I was saying, this is a show where I talk about things like being gamers, and there's a lot of stuff. So anyway, if you want to be part of the show, hey, come on over. We're on YouTube, doing the thing, and we are going to say a quick hello, baby hello to NP City. How you guys doing out there in NP City? What's up? How's it going? That's right. That is right. Living, breathing, chat, and all of that stuff. And, you know, they're sitting up telling me, oh, you need to bring up your mic a bit. All right, fine. I was blown out at the beginning of the show, so it's fine. Anyway, as I was saying, thank you guys for showing up, and if you want to be part of the show, I would love that. I would love that a lot. I would love, like, the art of that. And all you have to do is pull up your keyboard or whatever it is that you communicate with, your phone, your computer, all that jazz, and type in backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's BACKINTHEDECK @gmail.com. You can also find us right here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that other jazz, because that is what they expect of us out there. And the algorithm doesn't care if you push the button. It really doesn't. They don't really care if you subscribe. And of course, follow us on all the social medias, be it Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. Just type in Back in the Deck. If you are on that wretched hive of scumability that we know as Facebook, well, that's easy. Join the Deckers on the book. We are a really fun bunch of guys and all that jazz. So that is one of the things that we will be dealing with on that front. At the moment, we're doing a whole bunch of different things right now, and I have got so much new news to tell you guys. Yeah, that's right. I changed up the picture because that's what I do sometimes. And there are a few things out there. Yeah, I don't really turn the sound on all the time to make sure that there's other stuff happening. Yeah, we got a lot of things that we have to talk about. I said today that we were going to be talking about if you will, our marginalizations in games. Okay, and that's a real thing. Being marginalized in a game has always been a major problem for people. How can I put it? Okay, you can be in a game, and being in a game is awesome. It is amazing. It is all of those things that we like. We like being in games. We like, we there's a lot of things that we like. However, there are lots of ways to end up being marginalized, and there are lots of ways that a lot of people don't understand that these things happen. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. God, I'm so wonderfully organized. Sorry. One of the major reasons that we're having such difficulty today is, you know how like you go to bed and your computer restarts without your permission or consent or anything of the like? Yeah, that's kind of what happened to us today. So I've been fighting this thing. I've really been fighting against this thing all morning. It's been a day. So that's the thing, and I'm trying to fix it, trying to work on it. I'm just not sure where my regular background went. Yeah, so it's a thing. Anyway, we were talking about being marginalized in games, and that's all right. So there's a lot of things. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there are a lot of things that people in gaming, as it were, notice when it comes to what is the term I'm looking for? When folks join a game, if you will, okay? They join a game and they want to play. They want to play. We play pretend. We write these characters, which are really, really intense when all that jazz really comes down. And but one of the things that happens is there is an old saying, which is no game whatsoever survives first contact with the player. No game does that. And it's true. It's really, really true. What's the reason for that? Well, it's simple. When a person writes a game and does a lot of this stuff, they have great ideas. They have great ideas as to what they want their game to be, how they want their players to go. And once these things come down, it's like, yeah, this is what I want. And what happens? Well, fact of the matter is, well, how can I put it? As soon as you hit the table on any play, one thing happens, especially with newer players, and that is the players that you're dealing with. The players that you're dealing with, regardless of what they want to do, they always end up playing different aspects of themselves. Now, they might not like it, they might not want to do it, but it's a thing, it happens, it's real. Okay? Let's see if I did this right. Almost. Yeah, it happens, it's a thing, and it's very, very real. So how do they cope with this? Like, what are some of the things that they can do to present a better idea? Well, there we go. I'm back. All right, cool. One of the things that tends to happen when you play a game, now certain games are more prevalent at this than others. There is something that gets called bleed, all right? And when a person ends up bleeding, as it were, a couple of different things happen, okay? One of the things that happens is, well, how can I put this? People end up playing themselves. They end up playing their own, they end up playing their own persons, their own body. Regardless of what character gets created, as it were, the thing that ends up getting played is literally the person who they are. Okay, you can make the most clever, these robot calls are getting on my last nerve. Give me just a minute here. Okay, I have to block every single number. Yeah, this show is organized. Anyway, like I was saying, when a person gets in a game, okay, one of the side effects that happens is they end up playing themselves. Now, they could write an investigator from 8 or 9 different places. They can do a whole bunch of different stuff. But at the end of the day, what they end up doing is playing themselves within that job. Okay? So you can write a Sherlock Holmes if you want, right? Yeah, you can check out a Sherlock Holmes character, and you end up, especially in horror games, because Call of Cthulhu is notorious for this, you end up thinking not through your character's eyes, but through your own. And the facts are that us as individuals do not have these powers. We don't have these powers. We don't have these abilities. We don't do this stuff. Okay? But when we're doing stuff, we forget that. We forget what we're doing and how we're doing it in such a manner that that our characters go out the window, our personalities come out. Now, how does this tie with marginalization in gaming? Well, it's simple. When people end up playing themselves in a game, one of the things that happens is their personal, conscious, and unconscious biases tend to come out and interact with the other players as sometimes problems. Quite often we end up with people who, let's say we start playing a game and one of our players has a serious hatred of police officers, and one of our players, let's say Dungeons and Dragons for example, one of our players is a paladin who is super lawful good, always wants to follow the rules, and turns people in. Well, the player that he goes with, the player that they go with, or the player that they end up interacting with, the one that doesn't like police officers or cops, starts to be a jerk to the player or the character without interacting with the character as the character they wrote. They themselves start coming out. This is called bleed. This is when an actor, a role player, someone who is pretending to be something that they're not, forgets that they're pretending in a game and their personalities come out. Now, a lot of the times, this is a matter of a lack of preparation, a lack of clear thought. Because when you prepare for a game, you have to think like, what can my character do? What abilities do they have? What's their worldview? And how is their worldview different from my own? Because I don't live in a fantasy world where there are dragons and ogres and trolls. Okay, I kind of do, but, again, I'm a wizard. It's a different thing. But anyway, when this bleed happens, a lot of people's unconscious or subconscious biases tend to take a front seat. Pardon me for just a moment. I can't stand this. Oh, so much better. So much better. I like this a lot better. So yeah, once their biases, conscious or unconscious, start taking a front seat, then it's no longer a matter of I'm playing this game or my character does this, your character does that. What comes down is I do this to you. And when a person's unconscious biases start popping up, specifically unconscious biases, because most of the time, I'm gonna be straight with y'all, if there's a gamer who is sexist or racist or homophobic or any of those things that are internet hot words, they tend to just not play at the table with people who are like that. And more power to you. More power to you. But if they are playing with a member of the marginalized section of, as I call it, society, and they don't have any power to make that person go away, they tend to make the thing difficult. Now, these persons are jerks. And we're not going to talk about jerks today because we all know jerks suck. All right? That's just the way it goes. We don't like jerks. All right? We don't like jerks. We don't like, aggressively racist people. Aggressively, we don't like a lot of that stuff. So we're not going to talk about that. They're not on the table. What we're going to talk about is something a little more insidious. And that really is the people that have unconscious biases. And when I say unconscious biases, I mean they have a worldview that they have learned to consider normal. Okay? And they talk to people. Like, I've got some really, really good friends. But a lot of those good friends don't quite understand that a person who speaks proper English without, saying things like I and nah saying, that doesn't determine how black they are. A person's culture is determined a lot by where they grow up, and we tend to use, similar words. But because I say radical, awesome, or any other outdated phrase from the 90s, it doesn't take away from my ancestral heritage, my day-to-day struggle, things like that. And at the table, one of the ways that that people end up getting marginalized is unconscious normalizations of difficult things. Some would call these microaggressions. I don't exactly like that term because it puts people on edge and conversations tend to not be had. Okay, but let's take a look. Hey, thanks, Daryl. Over here in the chat we got Daryl over here. Yeah, and Daryl's putting that flat out there, saying, yeah, let's take a look. Oh yeah, know that pain hard. Yeah, World of Darkness was notorious for it in all the years I was playing, because I'm a black dude, so I have 3 roles I can play: Carlton, gangster, or corpse. That's pretty much the whole thing. And it's not that these people are aggressive or outwardly hateful. It's just a matter of their worldview doesn't influence their character as much as it influences their play. And part of being marginalized is, seriously, you live on the margins, you're not seen very often. I spend a lot of time in the suburbs, and there aren't that many nerds in the suburbs who, I guess you can say, are out, and there aren't that many people of color. So being a blurred, ooh, I'm an anomaly, and they really want to talk a lot about, they really want to talk a lot. Like, they have questions, and good on them. They're like, well, we didn't know that black people did this. We didn't know that all this other stuff. And I'm like, guys, put the cards back in the deck. If something is cool in the United States, more people have access to it than you think. At least commercially and things like that. But yeah. And no, I don't play Bruja. Yeah, that whole, if you're a person of color, you got to play a Bruja. Samedi, actually, because it's based on the voodoo stuff. Right? Magic, voodoo. I'm like, yo, I kind of like playing Tremere. But I'm not here to talk about Vampire the Masquerade. But we'll talk, Daryl. We'll talk. I got you. But yeah, so when it comes down to this stuff, a gaming table can be made uncomfortable by people who don't intend on making it uncomfortable, but they do. So how do we navigate these things? How do we navigate these things? Now, the obvious way is just don't play. Door, slam, gate, kept. Screw that. That ain't what we're here for. Okay? I tend to have a lot of private conversations. Conversations that start with, it hurts when you do this, I feel this way. Okay? Again, I've spoken quite a few times about the time I played a cleric that, just as an experiment, I made a dark elf cleric, and since he was from the Underdark, I kind of took a southern spin, and I played him like an evangelical preacher, and people just went, oh my god, this is the best character, because it's what they expected. It's what they could wrap their head around when I play a character in Theater of the Mind, but they're looking at my face, my skin, my differences from them. This is a problem, but it's not a cancel culture qualified problem, because don't know no better, can't do no better. It's really that simple. And a lot of these folks come at the marginalized with the best of intentions, okay? But we have this problem where the system that we've grown up in is so pervasive that people can't tell when their actions are actually causing people internal harm. Okay? They just can't do that. When you're at a gaming table, it's one thing to, what's the term I'm looking for? Okay. When you're at a gaming table or at a LARP, okay, when is it okay, when is it not okay to bring up a person's heritage? And the big thing is, let them. Okay, I like gaming with polyglots. These are people who are multilingual. Love it, because in so many games, I tend to run science fiction games. So there's a lot of alien languages out there. Not alien as in, you ain't one of us, blah, blah, MAGA, goat, whatever. No. But languages that I don't know, And a lot of other people at the table don't know. So if you've got one or two people at the table who are like, well, we don't speak common, we don't speak the common tongue, we are from this planet. And if those two are from that planet, they can speak Spanish. If two other people are from that planet, they can speak Korean. If one of the other players at the table is not from either one, but they speak Tagalog, then we've got some stuff going. We got like, hey, look at all this stuff. And I can, at least when I'm playing NPCs that don't speak the common tongue, I can write notes to the player that does speak Tagalog, and they can talk back to me in Tagalog while writing down what they're saying, and it's more immersive, but I clear that with the player. Because if the player wants to bring their culture and their heritage to the table to say, hey, look at some of this cool stuff, that's absolutely their right. However, if the other player brings their stereotypes to the table, that's where things start getting messed up. Now, people tell me all the time, well, dude, it's partly true because stereotypes exist for a reason. Yeah, that reason is that people are jerks, all right? I'm trying to stay kid friendly, but there are certain parts of the body that release stuff that smell bad, and that's what people who think that really are. Because, yeah, stereotypes do exist for a reason, and it's a poorly thought out one, okay? People are archetypes. Stories are written about archetypes. And what's the difference between an archetype and a stereotype? It's very simple. An archetype is a complete character that has thoughts, dreams, other personality traits than the obvious one, but the obvious one is the jumping off point. A stereotype is that one thing or those two things, and that is where the thought stops. If you want a good example, look at every Transformers movie, and when they have a black dude in it or a black transformer, all he's doing is talking like this, man. That's what you're gonna do. And then he's gonna piss on somebody like that. That's what he's gonna do. He's just gonna empty out his oil on top of that guy. And there we go. And that is that is it. That is as far as the character goes. Okay? That is a stereotype. Okay? Or Coonan, as we call it where I come from. But an archetype starts with that, but then goes into, well, they may speak like that. You might have a redneck who speaks with that southern drawl, man, but it turns out they have a whole lot of thoughts about politics, and one of them just happens to have a degree in a hard science, let's call it like physics, all right? So he might be talking about making that Dyson spear up there so that we can actually harness the power of an entire star and become like a class 1 civilization, know what I mean? And it's like, wait a minute. Using this accent, but this guy just dropped some science stuff, and then you come out. A great example of archetype versus stereotype is, again, using that southern guy accent there, you know what I mean? Is Woody Harrelson in Zombieland, all right? He's definitely redneck. I mean, he's going through everything, looking for Twinkies, talking about his dog, but the dude's a loving father who had to put his son down. Spoilers, but movie's over 10 years old. He had to put his son down because his son became a zombie, and he's actually going through post-traumatic stress disorder from that. And then he hooks up with the entire party of the whole thing because they kind of fill that void of being a surrogate parent. That is an archetype. The tragic father figure. So when a marginalized person sits at a table, if they're playing a black character, they have to understand that black is more than, oh, hell no. Or a gay character is a lot more than that, honey, all of these things is a singular thing that we use to define a character. But when a person is marginalized in real life, and then they go to a table and they become marginalized, that ain't escapism. Okay? That is not escapism. And for you guys in the back that don't exactly know what I'm talking about, that's not escapism. All right? So, no, seriously. I mean, it's not. They're not escaping anything. They're just sitting down at the table wearing funny clothes and going through stuff exactly how they normally would, you know. So yeah, that's a tough one. That right there is a tough one. Let's see. Let's take a look at what's going on in NP City. Man, Daryl's talking up a storm. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, see you again. I was recently talking to my girlfriend about not another teen movie because I have such a crush on Jamie Presley. But yeah, that whole thing being archetype stereotypes is definitely with the, yeah, I'm just here to be a black guy. I'm just here to say stuff like, damn, poop, and that is whack. And that's it. That's the stereotype. And the character was making fun of that because that's where they are in the joke. So when we sit down at a table, it's important to call out the other people at the table who are marginalizing the people at the table, especially if they're marginalizing them in ways that it's known that they go through difficulties. I know it sounds like a bit of favoritism, but I will tell you this: when I'm at a Call of Cthulhu table, or when I'm GMing a modern-esque game, or even a Dungeons and Dragons game, if there's a black player at the table and they have a run-in with the town guard, I make absolutely sure that the town guard doesn't overly harass the character that's played by my person of color. Okay, it might not sound fair, but being what I am, a 6'4" black dude with funny hair, I get pulled over and almost arrested for being black and nearby. You want to know why black people don't break up fights? Is because when the cops get there, we're the first ones arrested. So I make sure that my person of color doesn't have to interact with the police when I run a game that has police or city guards. I do everything I can to fight the temptation. Because here's the thing, as a GM, it's easy to pull the everyday problems that your players have and put them in the game. It's really easy, especially when you're going over a little bit of writer's block. If I've got 2 Latino characters and 2 LGBT characters that aren't Latino, I can easily throw in Nazi analogs or, modern day nationalist. I can easily do that. I can play that role as a GM, but would that be fun? No, that would not be fun, because my LGBT people, especially my trans players, live in fear of violence from those types of people every day. And my Latino players live in fear of police harassments and chads, telling them to go back to Mexico and about all that stuff, So yeah, it's a really tough, but again, it's easy storytelling fodder. So as a GM, it's my job to think about how my characters or how my players might have day-to-day marginalized problems, and kind of craft my story and my NPC interactions around that. Now here's the gig. It might sound like it's a little extra work. It isn't. Okay? Let's take women, LGBTQ, people of color, the disabled, the poor, and veterans off the table for this example. Middle class white guy. Okay? We'll call it United States default. Okay, United States default, middle class white guy. All right. When you're running stuff for middle class white guy and they say have an alcoholic father that used to beat them around, would you throw an NPC in the game that's based on that character to terrorize and antagonize that middle class white guy player? Of course not. That's a joke. No, you wouldn't do that because you want to keep your friends. And at the end of the day, these games are supposed to be fun, right? So why would you throw a Klansman analog into a game with a black player, or a Nazi analog into a game with a Jewish player or an LGBTQ player? They live that. They live it. They live in fear of it. They live with the memories of it. So that same courtesy that you would show to anyone else, this is how to show it to your marginalized players to make sure that they have a good time too. It's not special treatment. It's the same treatment in a different flavor. All right? Cool. All right. So, with that, I'm going to say something that would be a good place to edit this video and put up a shorter one after I get all this stuff edited. Now, the next thing I want to talk about. Now, lately, I have been doing a lot of stuff. Okay, I have been drowning in work. We've got a couple of festivals coming up. My mentors from Double Toasted are coming into town. We're doing the next filming of the show I'm currently editing, which is a new live playthrough called Warp Tumblers. So keep a lookout for that one. It's going up on the Patreon first. Don't know about the Patreon? Don't worry, I'll tell you about it at the end. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And with all the stuff that's going on, with crafting the questions for the interviews that I'm going to be asking over at Screamfest in Los Angeles, and building the sets for the Warp Tumbler show, and working on stuff for the, I promise it's on its way, merchandise store, something occurred to me, and that is, there is an expectation of excellence that I'm always fighting against. Okay? As a dude with an IQ that I have, people around me have this expectation that I'm almost superhuman. Okay? And I'm not superhuman. I'm not, I'm a smart guy. Okay? And I noticed this when it came to crafting, especially stuff for the merch store. There is this expectation that comes from people, which I can't quite put my finger on. I'm practically writing a wizard's thesis on it. But there's this thing that happens with people where they have this idea, and that's all it is really. It's an idea that at the end of the day, when someone makes something, we have this weird, unexpected bias to compare it to something that's mass produced. Okay? If you handcraft a thing, like, hey, I saw this at a store, I think I will make my own. The first thing a lot of people will do to themselves and to their friends is compare the work of someone who didn't go to carpentry school to the industry standard. Okay, now how did it become the industry standard? Years and years and years of building up crews, learning machinery, outsourcing stuff to different countries like China or Turkey or Taiwan. And yes, I differentiate between the two. I got family, all right? And you're expecting your friend, Jamal, in his garage with a carpenter square and a handsaw to pump out 18th century or 17th century Tudor furniture? Come on, yo. And the worst thing is when we do it to ourselves. Now, over my editing bay, I have a sign with a statement from Kalashnikov. This is a dude who invented the AK-47. Okay? And I don't have it in Russian because I don't speak Russian. I ain't that cool. Who said, "The best is the enemy of good enough." And I learned this when I was working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratories. I was trying to get everything machine precision because I was 19 and I didn't know any better. Okay? The fact is, getting it done is more important than getting it perfect. And for the past 20 years, I have let that be my mantra because I want to finish things. I want to get stuff out there. My videos are not Warner Brothers quality. I don't have the budget to pay editors and sound people and all this other stuff. It's me with a bunch of expensive gear using it one thing at a time. and then I push the render button and I pull out another computer and I work on this other thing, and then I push compile on that and I pull out another computer and I work on another thing. My mentors think I'm crazy, but they admire my passion, and they're right. I'm out of my mind. Okay, so with that expectation of excellence, we need to throw that out of the way when it gets in the way of us completing something. Now, I want to differentiate something, okay? There is a big difference between your best and the best, all right? I will never be able to cut a line as square and true as a CNC milling machine that has good software and sharp blades. Never. All right. And growing up marginalized, I never even got the stuff that did that, because you do get what you pay for. And if you don't have much to pay, you got to be happy with what you can get. You know, growing up, I didn't have Mighty Morphin Power Ranger toys, but I did have the ultra transforming Space Rangers that came in the same color scheme that you got from downtown LA. Shout out. If you guys want to know stuff like that, check out Phelan Phalis on YouTube. He actually does reviews of how the cheap knockoff toys are different from the branded licensed things. It's interesting to watch the difference, but sometimes I want to look at him going, look, man, I was Poe, all right? And there's a lot of kids that are out there that can't afford the $17 for the real Ninja Turtles, but they can't afford the $4 for the set of other Ninja Turtles, and that's good enough, all right? Because, you know, if it makes you happy, then why does it have to be the best? You know, and that's the whole thing. I was reminded of this because currently, as I said, I'm editing the new show, and I got all these ideas for sound effects and cool cutaways and 3D animation and blah, blah, blah. I can't do that. I don't have that skill set. Nor do I have the money to pay someone for that skill set, nor do I have enough negatives of their bad behavior to blackmail them into doing it for me. So I can't do all that stuff. But the important thing is that what I put up on my site and what I put out in my stores and what I bring to tables and what I take to community centers is my best. And here's something that they don't really tell you in school unless you have a really cool teacher that still smokes a lot of pot. Finish it. Finish the work. Get the grade that's not an A. And then do better on the next paper or the next project or the next short film. Okay? But trying to get it right, trying to get it perfect, it's great if that's within your capability, okay? But if the best is beyond your best, it's more important to get things finished on time, all right? Get it done. That's all. Just get it done. Get it out there. If you're having a hard time, of course, look at your notes. Try and get it better. But there's this old dressing thing that people used to do. And when I say dressing, I mean like when they're getting dressed and they're trying to look all cute, because they want to look cute and they want to be noticed, and they want people to remember them when they're looking cute. Okay, I'm not making a stereotype of women. I just hate this voice, and you know, you all know what I'm talking about. So there we go. Just being cute. Which is, they put on the outfit they want to wear. They turn away from the mirror. They turn back around real quick. Ooh! And the first thing they notice that isn't things like glasses, they take off. And the same thing with writing. You just read through it real quick, and the first thing that really goes, you know, it's too much, it's too over the top. Now, I look at that when it comes to corrections I make. If I'm trying to, say, draw a grid on a piece of foam, if I can back up from it 2 feet, glance at it on the table real quick, and then turn away, if I notice that it was crooked, then I got to do it again. But if I didn't notice that it was crooked, when I go, move a figure, all right, done. But I do notice that it's crooked when I take a real close look. I don't care. I don't care. I don't worry about fixing it. I have friends that do. And I'm like, then when you make it, you can do that. Okay? That's one of the things that you can do. And they're like, oh, my machine is off calibration and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Who are you making this for? Well, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's true. You can't unsee it. But, sorry to tell you, though you may not be able to unsee it, does it affect what it does? Okay? Does the generic Ninja Turtle toy make the kid less happy than a real Ninja Turtle toy? Only if his friends are those kind of jerks that would be like, you got that fake Ninja Turtle toy, you know? But outside of that, it ain't no big deal, especially if they're kids that play with other poor kids, that they got their, Ninja Turtles and their multicolored Space Rangers along with their Sylvester Hawks. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. If they have pocket monsters and not Pokemon, it doesn't really make a big difference. What's going on, Nerd Soul? Shout out to Nerd Soul right there. That is our good friend Nerd Soul, bringing that street geek and that nerd cred all the way out there to you. Check out his website, subscribe, hit that bell. This man is on to really big things, and I'm glad that he's one of our friends, man. Seriously. See, I do watch them comments, huh? So yeah, so really, what it comes down to, there's an old saying of your reach exceeding your grasp, okay? Or don't bite off more than you can chew, okay? The first the first few episodes of Warp Tumblers, which I'm planning on releasing tomorrow, they're going to be good, but they're not going to be Critical Role, and that's fine. They're not going to be Critical Role because I don't got that kind of cash. I don't have a crew of 35 people. I don't have 5K cameras and a really built set that I want to use for this one. But the content will be good. So this expectation of excellence that I've seen, and I see it all over the internet, I kind of see it as a terrible trick. Okay, and let's talk about that. Okay, that terrible trick really comes down to, there was a marketing race starting from like the late 1950s, early 1960s, and advertisers were fighting each other tooth and nail to succeed at certain things and in certain aspects of things. It was a real thing, y'all. And part of the advertising wars, just like political stuff, just like when you get into an argument, is discrediting what's out there so that people will like what you have to offer. Okay? I saw this when, I think it was the 1980s, and for the record, y'all know I love sci-fi. What y'all might not know is I love Doctor Who. It ain't surprising, but I don't mean new Who. I'm a big classic Who fan. I've been a Whovian since the late 70s, early 80s. And I was always trying to show my friends Doctor Who. Okay? But the BBC didn't have the same production budgets as American TV. So Doctor Who from the 1960s and stuff didn't even look as good as Star Trek from the 1960s, guys. Sorry. It looked different. They had different tools. But the writing, the storytelling, the acting, it was all really cool and really fun. It had enough camp. It had some really cool concepts, and it asked a lot of questions that good science fiction is supposed to. But my friends wouldn't watch it because it didn't look great. They were expecting the excellence of Star Trek, or in those days, Star Trek The Next Generation, for something that happened 30 years ago, 30, 40 years before that. And Yeah, it's they missed out on all that storytelling. And the interesting thing was when Doctor Who came back on in 2006, was it? 2006, 2007? Um then they started watching it with modern day special effects. They fell in love with the whole thing, and then they went back and they watched that classic stuff, and they just overlooked every reason that they didn't want to watch it in the first place. And I'm like, that expectation of excellence kept you away from 20 something years of something that you liked, and that's something that you currently like, you know? Um, so that happened as a marketing trick, where it's a toy. It's a toy that looks like a turtle. Is it from Playmates? Who cares? It's a toy that looks like a turtle. Use your imagination. That's the whole gig. But it's like, no, you have to have the playset. It has to be this. It has to be that. It must be excellent. It's like, guys, don't stress yourself out like that, because all that does is kind of make you a marketing pawn. And you miss out on other things like the fun that you could be having playing with that kind of toy. It's one of the reasons that I like Toy Story so hard. Andy had no play sets, so Buzz and Woody could go on adventures. Jesse and Buzz could go on adventures where Bo Peep was Batman, and you see what I mean? You see what I mean? You get opened up a whole lot more to using your brain and finding good stuff and discovering good stuff if you let go of it must be excellent the first time, regardless of how much skill, training, resources, and capacity I have. Come on. I get wanting to watch nothing but HD videos. I do, but Neil Gaiman was a good writer before he wrote Sandman. Okay? I want you to think about that. He was good before he wrote Sandman. He was good before he wrote Neverwhere. He was good before he wrote American Gods. He gets better over time. But if one of your friends came up to you and said, I don't want to read Anansi Boys because, I didn't like page 6 of Sandman. It's like, dude, that was almost 30 years ago, and he's improved since. But, this whole idea of, well, I don't want to read this, or I don't want to publish this, I don't want to stop working. Then you look up one day and you're in your 50s and you haven't really done anything but go to work. And this is how dreams die. And it dies because of that marketing trick. That trick of, if it's not excellent, if it's not the best, then no one will like it. No one will like you. Your work is worthless. The thing you have is worthless. Therefore, you are worthless. Let all that go. Okay? Do the absolute best that you can with what you have within the time frame you got. And you would be surprised at how many people go, you know what, this is good. Or this is real good. And I bet it's going to get better as they get more resources. I'm here today because of that. So, guess what, guys? Oh, it's almost like I'm going to play it off. Yeah, look at all that. Because I try and keep the show. So that's pretty much our time. If you guys like, if you guys really like what you see here, and I appreciate it if you do, then grab your keyboard, grab your stuff, and head on over to backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's backinthedeck@gmail.com. You can also find us on the social medias like Twitter and Instagram and SoundCloud. Just look up @backinthedeck or @BID_P. Check us out on Facebook on Deckers on the Book. Just leave me a question, something like that. Check out Deckers on the Book on social media all the time, even when I'm editing. And of course, head on over to our other places like our SoundCloud, which is a whole bunch of awesomeness right there. Yeah, on our SoundCloud we have audio renditions of all this stuff, and guess what? You can download those for free. Any of our shows, we've been doing this for 7 years now. So any of our shows that we got out there, you can download it, listen to it at your leisure. Be warned right now. I started this channel with Guitar Hero and I really messed up. Also, hit up our Twitch channel. Yeah, subscribe to Twitch. That's twitch.tv/BID_P. And you guys will be able to see we do at least one show a week on Twitch, one show on YouTube, and a lot more than that. Of course, our videos are being taken down. Why would our videos be taken off of Twitch? Well, the answer is they have a time frame. So you gotta let up real quick, because if after 2 weeks, then they go, you know what? Nah, it's done. But where do you go to look for pieces? That comes down. And you can also support the channel at patreon.com/PID_P. I like this new setup because we've got all these things. You guys can do what you can to grab us on the this is how I end up paying for a lot. I mainly use these things and upload them because you don't want to upload YouTube videos at a coffee shop. And since I have under 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I can't go live from my phone. It's YouTube's thing. It's their algorithm. It's their wretched high, their stealing money, or their unknowable career. Call it whatever you want. But hit us up on all these places if you guys want to know any more about what we're doing. I know my outro is feeling kind of tired and all that stuff, but that's okay. What I will have to say is, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like or do what you do because of circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, your disabilities, or your budgets, you tell them that process, take those words, and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for joining me this week on the Dark Side of the Moon. See you next week.